So you mentioned modules just before. Did you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, basically modules is an extension of kind of the general trend in like library development and stuff that has developed over years for like code isolation. So like all the objects, all the code related to objects, that's a module. All the code related to checkpoints, that's a module. Vehicles is a separate module. And
so in terms of like plugins and filter scripts, like we have in SAMP, is that what are we renaming them to modules, or I think I saw something about that before.
Not quite. Modules are more a chunk of code that provides some functionality. Yeah. So your filter scripts, I mean, we don't really have filter scripts anymore. You just have scripts because game modes and filter scripts was an arbitrary, pointless distinction in the first place. We do still have plugins, but there's legacy plugins, which is all existing ones. Most of them should work, some of them won't. If they use memory hacking, they won't work because that's changing values in memory at very specific locations. But because completely different code, everything's moved.
Yeah.
But then if someone wants to make, let's say, a memory hacking plugin to work on openmp, they can just use the existing API in openmp instead of
and not hack memory.
Yeah, you won't need to go about that route anymore.
Yeah.
No. So we have a full C API. So
correct.
Legacy plugins had about 3 functions that they could call in the server, and that was it. And there was all sorts of workarounds and horrible ways to on natives from plugins. Now you can do that directly. So 90% of the need for memory hacking plugins is just gone. Things like SAMP GDK, need for that was pulling pawn functions from plugins, that's gone. So plugins are all these legacy ones, and modules are basically the replacement. Like plugins, but far more powerful.
Cool. Okay, so we got a few questions about limits. I know that we talked about that in our last Q&A, and I think you guys said there won't be limits on things like vehicles and objects. Is that right?
Right now, openmp will be just a server release for now, so you have to make it compatible with San Andreas multiplayer. Therefore, we have to let's say emulate limits, but then internally in openmp there are no server-sided limits.
Yeah.
It just depends on how much your machine is capable to do.
There was one interesting issue with limits that we were discussing only last week. The server itself can stream players as well. So, in theory, you could have unlimited players on the server, even with this legacy SAMP client. Basically, we just send the players closest to you, sync them, and then when you move further away, we change which players are synced. But we've had to disable that by default because it means that everybody's constantly changing ID. So I'd connect to the server. I have a server ID of 27, but when I'm streamed to you, I have your local ID of 3. But I'm streamed to somebody else, and I have a local ID for them of 17. So you, as an admin, see that I'm cheating and type ban 5 because you think that I'm ID 5, but the server thinks that I'm ID 27. And translating those when people are just using raw IDs instead of names is tricky. So we've decided to disable that for now and make it optionally enabled if people want it, but with the caveat that their script will need to be aware of this. And for example, if in a command they just use strval to get typed ID, don't do that because it will probably be wrong. Or do that and then translate it from local ID to server ID. scanf will probably support that already. So with you, so if you do type you, if you use scanf with you already, it'll auto translate. Some scripts will need updating to support that.
Cool. Actually, the next question was, will we still be limited to 1,000 player slots? So I guess that kind of ties into that.
Yep.
Yeah, the answer for that, no.
If you enable it.
Not needed.
So moving on with the community questions. People want to know which languages other than Porn we can script our servers in.
That's completely dependent on plugin developers. We already have quite a few already, which can be easily ported over. And some already do work.
A lot of those plugins use SAMP GDK to access Porn, but we just need to change the lowest level in there.
Cool. Okay. Next question. Will SAMP/OpenCTL be the official package manager for Open Multiplayer?
Yes, it will. It'll be renamed, of course.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's Open Package Manager?
Yeah, I'm thinking mainly about developer experience type things, so things like logging and command line interface, environment variables, all the stuff that helps you kind of build game modes faster and deploy them faster and automate as many things as you can. Yeah, SAMPCTL will remain compatible, and will basically just add OpenMP support.
Yeah.
So you can switch to it just by changing a string and changing your includes, and then recompile, and it'll just work. That's the plan anyway. And then it'll eventually have a bunch of new features as well.
Yeah.
Sort of better log handling, better Docker support, better deployment automation, stuff like that. Some of which will be implemented into OpenMP itself. Yeah, hopefully that answers that.
Does answer in that, yes, SAMPCTL, OpenCTL is officially supported, officially endorsed, probably distributed with it. That doesn't mean it's required. You can write scripts without it. If you don't use it now, you don't have to start using it.
A lot of people wanted to know if we'll have a built-in anti-cheat.
Not really an anti-cheat, but more of just like we will try to block a few known issues, any exploits, stuff like that. But I think we're going to leave it to other developers to
provide people the tools
their own way.
To build good anti-cheats.
Yeah.
That's probably the most efficient way anyway, because then the community can kind of like come together and build solutions for specific cheats. Because if the community is dependent on us for doing that, then it's just going to get overtaken, because the amount of people developing cheats is going to outnumber the amount of people developing OpenMP, probably.
Yeah,
So
I'm sure they can.
Providing
they can
people with
push
tools
out
to do that
updates for theirs
is the best thing to do.
Yeah.
We'll probably post an official kind of repo for one where anybody can contribute and serve it as a module, just centralized. Because the idea is that eventually, it's called OpenMP. It's meant to be open source. It's not currently because we've not finished the first release. But once it is, then we can release it and other people can contribute. And that's one of the major areas where we're hoping they will do.
Yeah.
Will it have an officially included anti-cheat? Yes, if you help us. Definitely can't have a general ban system because servers are independent. If one server wants to keep you or one server wants to ban you, that's down to the server.
Yes.
As for the anti-cheat itself, will be separate, and you can update it at any rate you like.
And then on that note, Clio mods. A lot of people want to know if they'll still work, or mods in general.
Oh, yeah, they're all client side, so that doesn't really.
There'll be no
right
changes.
Cool.
Yeah, not in this version anyway.
People wanted to know if OpenMP will have a fixed GPCI function like a serial in MTA.
Problem with that is it's never going to be a 100% guaranteed way of banning someone or finding out if that player is that player, because anyone with any kind of skills at all will just use some kind of modifier for their system, and they will just change some information, and then they've got a brand new ID. So there's not really much we can do with that. We can provide you the tools, but I can't say they're ever gonna be 100% working.
We got a lot of questions about RakNet. I think people just want to know what your thoughts are on it. If OpenMP will use the same version that SAMP uses, blah blah blah.
There's a minor difference, but nothing extraordinary. We need the same. Well, we need basically the same major version for it to actually communicate with SAMP correctly.
So yeah, for now we're going to use RakNet as the same version that SAMP is using, right? only to keep the backward compatibility. Other than that, for example, for NPCs that Josh is working on right now, I mean, not right now, but he was working on it. But he was using eNet. That's probably our first choice. And it's way much better than RakNet.
I like eNet.
And it gets contributed more frequently. So we do not have issues with, I don't know, exploits or stuff that come up later. Because we all know that RakNet project is dead. Like, the latest version is probably 6 years old by now. So that's the only reason that we are using RakNet. We're going to change that.
Okay, so there was a lot of discussion in the thread about sync and cbug and stuff like that. So I guess people want to know what the sync will be like compared to SAMP. And
It'll be the exact same.
The exact same?
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
I'm going to disable cbug. We can't do that until client comes out. I'm probably not going to do that because it ruins the experience of SAMP.
Yeah, so there was a lot of debate about that. And obviously there is within the team as well.
People like... Yeah, people enjoy that stuff, and there's already ways to stop it and prevent it anyway. So I don't really think it's kind of
I think we should probably in the client we should probably add a way to disable those kind of bugs if the server owner wants to, but maybe. it should be an option.
You can already disable it via pawn scripts though. So
yeah, you can.
So the consensus on that, just to clarify, is that we are just going to leave it how it is, and each server can choose what they do with it. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Again, it's up to servers. Servers are different.
Yeah.
They want it, they can have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like lag comp. Like people like lag shot. Some people don't like lag shot.